Welcome, my wise ones. Today in the tea room, we're joined by filmmaker Sean Stone, who also describes himself as a media host, an author, an actor, poet, speaker, and above all, truth seeker and spiritual activist. Join us as we take an energetic jaunt through various aspects of spirituality. When we last met, we were talking about your docu-series, The Best Kept Secret. But I really wanted to get more into the spiritual with you today, if that's okay. And
Of course.
I was having a look around your website and the things that you've done, your work and what you offer. So I thought maybe we'd start there and see where the conversation goes, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. So first of all, what is your workshop, The Art of Success? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. The Art of Success is something that I put together. I think it was a couple of years ago now. It's like time has become so irrelevant in many ways to our consciousness. It feels like we are almost in dream time, right? Things pop up in synchronicity more. I would say it's more about synchronicity, right? And timing for the moment. And it's less about dates and years and all these like Saturnian structures, right? So we're more fluid. So the Art of Success was something that I put together as like a little workshop series. I guess we did, I can't remember if it was like 4 or 5 or 6 parts to it, but it involves questions, basically, like, writing, people can do reflection, writing, journaling on questions. It was designed to really help us to recognize that each one of us is a success in our own evolutionary process, right? As souls working through this very difficult challenge of being human. And so I felt like it's important to sort of to shift this notion of what is success in our modern world and our society's notions of success predicated on image, glamour, money, beauty, celebrity, right? All of these expressions of modern success oftentimes are very toxic, and they don't reveal, as I've seen through my whole life, they don't reveal the truth of people. It's like the image, it's like we fall in love with the image, the facade, and not the substance. And so I wanted to bring it back to each person recognizing in themselves, what is my life story? So what are some of the things that what are some of the things that I've been challenged by, tested by, my successes, my failures? All these are different aspects of our growth, and in owning our growth and being able to like own ourselves as a whole, we realize, wow, my life is a success. It doesn't need to be compared to anyone else's, because it's only my own journey that matters, and my appreciation for it. That's what matters. So if I appreciate my journey, if I appreciate all that I've experienced, seen, done, then I'm already like basically feeling, the collective I is feeling, I think, more confident, more positive, bringing more self-love. That's, to me, the most important message that I can offer people, is each of us has to find more appreciation, gratitude, and love, specifically starting with ourselves. And from there, we can then experience life, I think, with more optimism, with more compassion, more empathy, more love for others.
Yeah. So what prompted you to want to create all of those ideas into a workshop? What prompted you to do that?
I was going through it myself. I mean, it's funny because I always say, when I work through things, it's basically it's the journey of an artist. Most artists, I think, right? They're experiencing something, they're feeling something, they want to paint it or put it into music or poetry or visual arts, right? Or writing. And so when my heart goes into something like an experience or something I'm working through, I want to express it. I want to, write about it, or in this case, offer it as a workshop for others to say, hey, listen, these are some of the prompts and some of the things that I've been working through, and I feel that I can offer it to others to as a path, as a tool that they can utilize.
Yeah. Which brings us quite nicely into something else that you have on your website, which was 10 things to learn. And it was like a YouTube clip of you
Yeah.
talking about that. I won't list them all because people can check out your website and find out for themselves. But what I liked actually about your approach when I listened to the whole thing is that you, in a soft way, but you kind of criticized the more kind of new agey thinking of everything being really positive and everything being wonderful and lovely. Because quite shockingly, one of the things that you said we need to learn is how to hate. And you don't hear that a lot. But it's true, isn't
Right.
it?
Well, we can't ignore these things. I think that's been very much my attitude throughout my life. Is That's why I've been able to go into very dark places as a researcher, or writer, or as an inquisitor. I mean, I'm not afraid of exposing or going into places that are dark. That was my first film, was about going into haunted, abandoned places that want to be ignored. People want to ignore it. They want to forget. They want to ignore, the demonic or the dark or the satanic, if you want to call it. And I never had a problem, because I said, look, that's part of our reality.
Yeah.
So rather than ignoring it, why don't we actually see what's there and work to bring it in a more, that's what being holistic is about. It's bringing the lower frequencies to marry with the higher ones, and not to say, well, I don't want the lower frequencies, I just don't want to deal with that, I'm going to ignore it. Well, guess what? It's gonna get you one way or the other. It's gonna creep into your reality, right? You cannot lock away that which is dark. You cannot lock away. It's just like anything in our reality. I feel that, especially in America, in the West, it's like we locked away death, we locked away poverty, we locked away racism, whatever it was. It was like, oh, we don't want to talk about that, we don't want to focus on that, we just want to focus on the good, on the money, on the optimism. And it's like, well, it's going to explode in your face. It's that which how do you say, you cannot hide things in terms of this reality. It's all manifests in some way or another, right? It's a contrast. This is a reality full of contrast. So we have to be willing to look at it and to bring more compassion and understanding. So even hate, it's like, okay, well, that's an extreme expression can be an extreme expression of anger, can be the opposite of love, but it can also be an expression of love. And right, because that which we hate oftentimes can be an aspect of ourselves. It can be aspects of ourselves that we don't want to face or address, right? We project onto others. It can be aspects of ourselves, or just not even just aspects, maybe not even major aspects of ourselves, but they can just be aspects that we are expecting more. Like, let's say, I expect more from myself or from others, and so I turn it into an inversion. I turn it into hate. Well, what's that expectation? Why can't I just accept things as they are? And the more I can accept things as they are, right, maybe the less I'm feeding that hatred. So I can't remember specifically everything I put into that, how to hate. I can't remember all that I put in that. But again, it's just my mentality. My attitude is, everything that exists for a reason. This is God's universe, right? There's a reason for it. So let's not ignore it or pretend like you can just meditate your way past it. These emotions, they have validity. And the beauty of life is to work to polish and refine and hopefully become more comfortable with these emotions, even the heavy ones, even the dark ones, even the hatred.
Yeah. Why do you think, so thinking about sort of heavy emotions, dark things that can be difficult, why do you think we as humans do not manage power, for instance, very well?
Well, as they say, power corrupts, right? It's very rare
Yeah.
to get the noble statesman, the one who can have, it's like Jesus. I mean, essentially, it's like okay, so you have the power of Satan or power of a Jesus, right? I mean, if you talk about, like, mythologically, right, these kind of two extremes, or the devil and God, right? And one, it's, first of all, it's difficult to manage power well, because we are in a world where we have a physical body, we have physical needs, we have wants and needs that are connected to an ego, right? So there is the lower aspect of ourselves. And unless we really have navigated, which is the journey of the Christ, right, to navigate, to be able to ride the ego without being attached to the ego, right? To be able to say, okay, there is the ego, it's there, but I'm not, but I can put others above myself. I can put the benefit of the other above my own, right? That is the journey that that everyone, I think, has to go through, and you know, maybe it takes lifetimes, you know, reincarnation processes for the soul to get to that place of being able to say, okay, it's not just about me and my immediate needs or my immediate family, my immediate blood. I mean, it's like it begins with, right, me and my family first, and then my clan or my party or whatever it is, you know, my tribe first, my gang first, and my brother, you know, my brothers and sisters, all that kind of like mentality, my nation first, and then you get to that place of, okay, yeah, I can prioritize, but if my family is wrong or my nation is wrong, right, or doing something wrong, I can also have the humility to say, hey, you know, this is I'm not going to basically ignore what I'm doing wrong, my family's doing wrong, my nation, my clan, my tribe, whatever is doing wrong, and say I'm right. I'm going to go and inflict punishment on someone else. So that's where the power thing is. It's like we have to basically come through that evolution of being able to say, yeah, the ego is flawed. The tribe, the family, all these things, they can be flawed. Can I look at it from a more empathetic perspective and say, how can we find the benefit of the other in our agreements, in our accords? And I think this is something that I've always looked towards as far as politics go, or social societies go and stuff, just, you know, media, is to try to show the perspective of the other. I think it's really important for us, right, to see from other people's perspectives, to see from, you know, from another countries, another culture, another religion, you name it, right? And then as we become more far-sighted, it's like, what did Solomon want? Solomon, when you get, you know, God says, what do you want? You know, you can have the wealth, and obviously he had the wealth and the power and all these things, but he's like, I want wisdom, because how do I use the power? How do I use this status? How do I use that which God has given me, right? And if I don't have the wisdom, and the wisdom comes from what? It comes from hearing all the different perspectives as much as possible, and trying to empathize with the different perspectives and find a balance, right? Find an equilibrium, because, you know, truth surpasses any of us, but we can at least find equanimity as much as possible, right? Equity. That's what I think we're looking for. And so again, going back to like why humans have so much trouble with power, it's because the ego is gonna the reptilian brain in particular, right, is gonna have us craving that which you know, we can satisfy, and then realizing, hey, our appetites increase as more we, right, the more we feast, then we can have realize, oh, we can actually have more, and then you get gluttony, and then you get, you know, lust, and then you get you name it, wrath. If you don't get what you want, you become wrathful, and all these things spiral. So if we don't have our sins in check, in a sense, if we don't have ourselves in a place of balance, then it's very easy to go into the indulgence of the ego, the reptilian mind, trying to constantly feed and secure. And if we can't feed and secure ourselves, well, let's say, like, what starts with feeding and securing yourself, but then you want to feed and secure those around you, and then you want to have as much control as possible over others. It's like, you know, you want to have your food source, right? If you're energetically feeding on everything around you, and then you're saying, well, now I want to feed on, you know, more and more, and I want to have control over the minds of people, over the energy of people. I want to control their food supply. I want to control, you know, you name it. I want to control the minds of the planet. I want everyone to follow me, to love me, to whatever it is. It's a spiral, and it comes very quickly if we don't have ourselves in a balance between our ego and our higher knowing, which is empathetic, which recognizes the benefit of the other, which is willing to, you know, set our ego aside, so that we're not, how do you say, we're not forcing, we're not imposing.
Do you think, though, that in a way that's the inevitable trap of what it means to be human in physical form? Because at the moment, from my tiny corner of the world, it really does look like the evil forces are on top at the moment. And as you were saying in your 10 Things to Learn, sometimes I think in the kind of new age sense, we get into this idea that the ego is bad, but actually we need the ego, we need the sense of self, our individualism, we need the physical body to navigate this plane, this physical plane, and what it means to be human. So, those of us on a spiritual path try to rise above all of that. Of course we do, but it seems to me that it's an essential part, it's an essential trap of being human, and that's why, in a way, this is hell where we are in this physical plane. What do you think?
I think we've been in the most densest, or the Kali Yuga in the Veda. The Hindus talk about Kali Yuga, right? It's like the densest, most materialistic expression of experience can be hell for sure, right? Because everything becomes tangible in a physical way, as opposed to you can, if it's more ethereal, let's say it's more in the mind, you can navigate it perhaps or move through it more quickly. Whereas with the physical world, it's a little bit slower, right? Time slows down into this physical realm. So it has been a type of hell, but it's also a learning process. I mean, I always emphasize to people, well, your school can feel like prison, right? Because man, I want to learn already. I want to get there. I don't want to sit here and spend all these hours and days and months and years going through this process, right? But that's what the education requires, in a sense of experiencing through the physical consequence. That's the physical, the physicality creates karmic repercussion. Like nature is so beautiful because, you can try to deny nature, you can try to avoid it, but it's going to catch up to you, right? How you live your life, the emotions, the foods, the experiences, the choices, they all have karmic repercussion, right? You eat something that you eat too much, or eat something that's not good for you, and you're probably going to get sick from it, right? It's like that's just karmic repercussion of being in the physical realm. So it's a great teacher if we actually are learning from oh wait, this is where's the balance? So they talked about before, like finding our balance is the key here. So it's the balance of the ego with the higher knowing, which yes, we are spiritual beings. We already are tuning into our spiritual life just from our various practices, from our mind, our imagination, our dreams, right? All that indicates that it's multidimensional. But yes, I still have a physical body. How can I balance the two? I mean, this goes back to the alchemists and all the different traditions and hermetic traditions. We're always like trying to tell you balance the heavens with the earth. There's a great image of a sketch from, I can't remember if it was the 15th or 16th, probably 15th century, probably around the Renaissance, but it's this sorcerer looking man who's like his feet are on the earth, but his head is in the heavens, right? And it's like, that's what we are. We are the balance of heaven and earth. We're working to balance our ego, our lower primal animal self with our angelic self. And that's why we're here, because they say that the angels admire humans because we actually have the courage to go here with, blindfolded, essentially, the fools. We may have divinity like helping us in more than we know, but we don't know that divinity is helping.
Yes.
We don't see God's hand coming and grabbing somebody, right? We have to use our faith and our inner knowing and our intuition to say, oh, God did that, or oh, God is allowing this to happen, but we don't know. And that's why a lot of us, a lot of people, scientific minded materialists, be like, oh, you're imagining things. Well, okay, you're just more connected to a different frequency, a different dimension that you can't see with your eyes. But that's why this world is such a beautiful challenge, because we go with this faith that you can't touch. You can't touch love. You can't touch your emotions, but you either have that knowing and that connection, or you've lost it.
So you mentioned alchemy there. So if we can kind of do a tenuous segue, when I was listening to you talking with James Delingpole, you were talking about your kind of dalliances, if you like, with magic. So tell me a little bit about that. How did you come to experiment? What did you do? What was the purpose, and what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I've never really been too drawn to magical practices. That's not really my my interest. Like I've read, some of these books, right? And they'll be like, okay, you have to get this oil and this, incense and all these different, and then you get your board and you draw your circle and all that kind of stuff. I've never really done that. That wasn't really good. It never called to me. I believe more in energy and working with like meditation and working with breath and kundalini and that kind of thing, like working in that sense of the energy or the chi, qigong, things like this, right? Working with the energy body.
Yeah.
And doing visualization. But always, to me, magic is very dangerous because it's clear in the sense of thy will be done versus my will, right? So people like Aleister Crowley, the reason he's a black magician is because he's inverting the concept of thy will, which is the higher thy. It's like the higher self, the soul, which is connected to God. So when you trust that, when you trust God, you trust your higher self, you're basically centering to thy will and saying, let me work in conjunction with thy will, as opposed to my will, which Crowley and those people are like saying, okay, well, it's will is above love. So basically we're going to invert the idea of love, right, which is God, which is the higher soul, which has a divine plan and has its, how do you say, it requires faith to trust that plan and that process, right? Well, let me assert my will. And so they inverted that faith into willpower above love, right? So I can will my way through things. And what you get with these concepts of extreme will is oftentimes you end up kind of like, it's like putting your lower chakras above your higher chakras. It's an inversion, right? So instead of the lower chakra being below, right, which is, our heart is here and our lower chakra is down here, they invert it. So it's like, it's the lower chakra, it's the sex and the stomach, and those drives are more important than the heart, you see. And so they've inverted the scheme into what you call black magic, where they basically are willing to sacrifice other people. Now we all require some level of sacrifice. Can be like, fasting. It can be, surrendering of something that you want, right? That's your self-sacrifice. It's Christ saying, hey, I'll surrender my life. That's self-sacrifice. These black magicians are doing sacrifice of others, right? So it's like, I'll sacrifice someone else's life, someone else's child, or my child, or just whatever it is that's not me, for my will. You see, my will is more important. That's the black magic. So it's important when I say, like, I've been looking at magic a lot for 20 years in different capacities. The only time I've actually like done a couple, let's say like a spell was, speaking is different kinds of spells. Whenever you speak, you are casting a type of spell. Yeah. But I read the Enochian texts of John Dee, and I just read it. It's like, so there's an Enochian text, and it's supposed to be invoking the various spirits, would be considered angels. Who knows? It was essentially, it's like these beings. So I spoke text, and I did it in a private way at my room, and then 30 minutes later, I had this weird being calling me. It was like this entity. It was like an unknown number on the phone. And this was a time when I was getting a lot of phone calls from 666 numbers and all kinds of strange entities, because I had been initiated into Masonry. And as soon as I got initiated into Masonry, it was like, boom. All of a sudden, there were these things calling me, watching me. They want, witches, all that kind of crazy stuff. They want my soul. I was just like, wow, this is wild. It was very strange. And so the same thing happened with this Enochian being. After reading this incantation, it was like calling me, saying, something I could barely understand, because it was like garbled, distorted, coming through this phone line. And I'm like, okay, well, and I already understood at this point that these beings are real. These entities are real. I mean, people haven't been hallucinating these things for millennia. This is an aspect of our reality. And when you start to go into that, like, you open that door, high strangeness ensues. But it helped me to understand the nature of our reality being, how do you say, at one level, a dancing consciousness, right? And there are dark to light. There's, the lower frequencies to the higher frequencies that are all working. But preservation of the soul, to me, was the most important message that I learned in that time period. Was all these things are trying to basically get at the soul of people. You have to preserve your soul. And that's that includes your physical body, because your soul's expression through the physical form is your body, right? So how we treat our body is very much an expression of how we treat ourselves, right? Mm-hmm. And then preserving the soul means faith, right? It means to talk about that balance, that ability to put the ego aside, or to like keep the ego in a certain level of perspective, right? So we don't let the ego drive us. And yeah, that's really the battle is for souls on earth.
I want to challenge something of what you've said actually there, Sean, because yes, there is the left-hand path, the my will over everything.
Yeah.
But equally, I don't believe that all people that practice magic are of the darkness at all, and also isn't the point that God gave us free will to choose, and also how do you put that next to the idea of manifesting, for instance? Because in a way that's setting intention, isn't it? In a similar way, I would say the same way as a magical intent. So yeah, tell me what you think about that.
So again, going back to white magic versus black magic, right? Black magic is my will over love, over God's will, over the flow of the universe, right? It's all in Star Wars, right? It's the Sith who basically are running off of the lower frequencies, right, of hate and anger and power, right? That's the dark side. The Jedi are more what you call white magicians. They're in working with the flow of the Force, right? They are in service to the greater good, and that's my point. Is they put thy will above their own, so they put themselves into a place of, okay, I'm not letting my ego run this. I'm willing to put my ego aside and not impose upon others' reality. You see, not to manipulate people, try to be as straight and clear with people as to what's going on, to try, and at the level of consciousness they're at, often there's truth to the fact that you can't, the Christ said you can't, throw pearls to swine. There's truth to that. Sometimes you tell people things and they're just not ready for it. You can shatter you can make them hate you. So you have to be careful of what you tell people, because it depends on where they're at in terms of their consciousness. But that's fundamentally, the white magicians are the ones who are not looking to, they're not run by service to self. Of course, we want to live a beautiful life. We want to manifest, for our best, but we're not just doing it just so we can have a bigger house with faster cars for more, gluttony and sloth and all that. No, we want it so that we basically, whatever we want for ourselves, we're actually hoping to share with others. We want more abundance that we can then, share our light with others, right? It's like, I want to manifest more abundance so I can be able to share more of my insights, my knowledge with others. That's what drives me, right? It's not just having it so I can have, more for me. That would be boring. So that's I think that's what you're talking about in terms of the manifestation. Is like, we're working towards, hey, we want to manifest a beautiful world for myself and others to share in. I don't want to live alone in a mansion next to everyone being homeless and impoverished. I don't want that. I want everyone to have some at least some level of abundance that that reflects where they are in terms of the opportunity that's available to them and their choices, right? Like, everyone has to recognize, like, their choices do have consequence. And so I don't believe in, like, hey, just give everyone $1 million and they'll be happy. That's not how it's going to work, because people are, if you haven't done the work, you don't know how to hold that million. You don't know how to appreciate that. You don't know how to use that, right? $1 million. Some people are just going to, spend it and be back in the street tomorrow. It's like, that's what consciousness comes into play, right?
Yes, I agree entirely. So you also speak about high strangeness. So what do you mean by that, and what experiences have you had?
High strangeness?
Yeah.
I had too much to go into. I think my film, Greystone Park, is a good place to start, because that was inspired by real events. I think it's called The Asylum Tapes in the UK. That was inspired by real events. But the high strangeness was literally, it was like two years of my life. Of, just like I said, phone calls from 666 numbers. I had one I put on Alex Jones' show. They were calling with like some ritual. They were trying to like call upon Baal, and it was like they were doing a ritual, like calling us on the phone. It was like crazy things like this. I mean, I had like I have video recordings of some of it, and so it's really difficult to like encapsulate, because I would like to release a documentary at some point just showing it, because I have so much footage.
Yeah, you must.
Yeah, when it's the right moment, it has to be the right platform, you see, because people will think I staged this stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit about UFOs. What's your take on that? Is it technology of this world that we just don't know about? Is it the future coming back to us? Is it beings from other dimensions? Is it beings from other solar systems? What's your take on the whole UFO thing?
Look, I'm of the mind, everything is mind, right? I mean, I think that's one of the Hermetic principles, but everything is mind. And what that means is, in terms of consciousness, it's all possible, and it's all, it's like the nature of quantum mechanical reality, right? It's like it's all possible. And what manifests at a moment is an experience in your consciousness. It's all relative to your experience, and and your choices at some level. Because this is a quantum, let's say this is a quantum hologram, right? This universe. Who knows? Like, who knows what is real? Who knows what is really happening here? I mean, literally, I believe that we can change the past. I think that nothing is fixed. I really don't believe anything is fixed. I think it's all been collective choices of consciousness, like a dream, right? So in a dream, you don't say like, well, what world am I on? You don't know. You're in that world, right? That's the way I see this reality. It's not much different than a dream. And so, are there different dimensions that are working through? Of course. Are there different worlds that are working through? Of course. Do we have advanced technology? Yeah. I think they're all simultaneously coexisting. And that said, none of us is allowed to have the full scope of it, because we're supposed to be in this sort of mysterious dream of our own evolution in consciousness to reveal things to ourselves in the time that we need to have that revelation. So I don't have an answer. I think it's all true at some degree, at some level. And I don't know the why, except that I do believe this is a controlled experiment, and a lot of these beings are kind of reflecting the sort of some of the controllers of the experiment of our evolution in consciousness.
Okay, so I know you're pushed for time. So one more question for you. So I also noticed on your website that you give one-to-one consultations. So what is that? What do you do? Because what did you call it? I don't know if I can find it now. I don't know if you read cards. What is it that you do?
No. Well, no, we do have a deck.
That's it, because you mentioned it. Yes.
A wisdom deck. It's not like it's different than tarot. It's more of a wisdom deck reflected from just 50 cards that I created.
You created the deck yourself?
Yes.
Beautiful, so, lovely.
So, but I really would say, like, the consult is very individual to the person, right? So some people just want to talk to me about, politics, or, the global perspective, or just, ask me questions about what's going on. Other people want to dive more into, like, their, feedback and guidance for them in terms of where they are in their path. And sometimes you just need that. You need like a coach, or an advisor, or someone that can give you reflection, right? Some feedback. And then, I mean, we can also do like kind of some Kundalini breathwork type of, guided meditation techniques, depending on if that's, if that feels like what the person needs. There's, of course, the wisdom deck to draw upon. So it's intuitive. I would say it's an intuitive session involving feedback, sometimes some energy work, that kind of thing.
Are you very intuitive?
I don't know how to classify myself, but I trust my intuition.
But obviously people give you feedback after they've had a consultation with you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, some people, again, I don't have the bandwidth and the time right now to do as much as maybe in the past I had more time to do it. But no, I feel like people have appreciated the sessions.
Yeah.
So, sometimes these things can be also, we can also bring up stuff. Sometimes people can have like, can have reactions, because that's part of the process of our growth, right? Is finding our triggers. That's
Yeah.
another thing, right? It's oftentimes people get triggered and then they like to blame you, but it's like, the truth is, our triggers are great reflections of where, hey, why is this coming up for me, right? We always have to ask ourselves, hey, if someone's triggering something, what is it in me that I need to look at? Where, because it's a bomb that's inside of me.
Exactly. So why did you charge it at $333?
Why, I don't know. Why does anyone charge anything? I mean, I'm very much into synchronicity, as I mentioned. So I think that's, it's a good angel number, but why does anyone charge anything? Why does someone charge 100? Why does someone charge 1,000? I mean, they're just numbers.
Are they just numbers, or was there a point to it?
No, it's just a choice. I mean, it's just a choice. I also do it through Patreon, which you can get for a little bit of a discount. You can do 100 a month on Patreon, and that's another option. And then you get the guided meditation videos and the interviews and all that kind of stuff.
Are you, because you also do poetry, and you've put some to music. I was listening to it on Spotify, and you've got such a lovely voice for that. I mean, it was so soothing. I really do urge people to check that out. It was really relaxing and created a really lovely energy. But are you the kind of person that needs to do lots of different things? You a bit of a polymath? Do you get bored?
I guess, I think I get bored. I think the truth is that my experience of reality is I'm very curious. So I like to explore things. And as I said, I like to reflect my explorations. So whether that's writing a script or making a film or doing a documentary, or, I've written poetry since I was in high school, and I just felt, hey, I need to publish this now, and then I connected with a beautiful musician, Michel Huizen, who did the soundtrack for the Alien Spirit album. And he just had he just had this beautiful music. We decided, hey, let's put this poetry to spoken word and make a spoken word album. And yeah, I mean, look, I would love to write music and make an album one day. I think there's no limitation to our creativity. And I'm not Leonardo da Vinci, but I think that's the point, is like, we want to be expressive of our interests, right? I mean, that's the whole point. We should be Renaissance people, right? We should be studying all things and not specializing so much. Part of our problem in society is we've surrendered so much of our own ability to be empowered, to be sovereign, right? Because we feel like, oh, well, the lawyer, he knows better than I do. The doctor, he knows better than I do. And it's like, yeah, I can appreciate that. Of course, if someone's going to study and spend more time, but you still have a brain, you still have a logic, you still have an ability to study and learn and say, this doesn't make sense to me. And then you can choose, like, hey, you know what, I'm going to find a doctor who's more in alignment with my perspective.
Yeah.
And just go to the next doctor who's, going to tell you to take the shot.
Yeah. Talking of synchronicities, when I was looking at your 10 things to learn, it was really helpful, because you were talking about to create, and you were saying that destruction is not the opposite of creating something, and actually the opposite is inertia. And you were talking about maybe the scripts that you've written and how they have to be refined. And I'd written a piece that I was having a backwards and forwards to the editor about, and I was really struggling with it. I was really struggling with the desire to be true to what I felt came to me, complete and lovely as it was, but also taking on board their feedback. And I was so struggling with that process. And when you said that destruction is not the opposite of creating, and it's about refining, that was really what I needed to hear just at that moment.
Well, it's true. I mean, anyone that's created knows that. And it's like, it's kind of the way that some people say, look, love is not the opposite of hate. Apathy is the opposite.
Yes.
At all is the opposite, right? That's the other extreme. Love and hate can be very entangled, just like creation and destruction can be very entangled, because it's always a growth process, right? And then, as you said, inertia is just, well, that's the nothingness, that's the absence, that's the death state. Not even really death. You could just say this. That's the nothingness. state. And that's okay too. Like, sometimes you wanted to sleep and have no dreams and just rest, right? And then you feel regenerated. So sometimes you need the inertia. Sometimes you need to be flat. And then, okay, I've got the energy again to climb the mountain. And sometimes it's or the valley, but both have an up and down, right? That's the point. There's some has the up and down. You don't just get to go to the top of the mountain and sit there. You got to go up and down. Same with the valley. You got to go down and back up. And that's why the creation and destruction. It's like it's the battle. It's the up and down process.
Beautiful. So, what's coming up for you? What are you focused on now? What should we look forward to?
I take the Fifth Amendment. We'll see.
Okay. Okay. Any last thoughts for us?
No, I think we covered a lot. We covered a lot of, great questions, and I love that you approach it like a psychiatrist or a therapist a little bit.
Oh, well, bless you. Thank you for giving me your time. And I wish you well. Thank you. Bye. Bye. That's it for today, my wise ones. Follow me on Instagram at TalkingTealeaves99. Check out my Substack. And more importantly, please contact me, talkingtealeaves99@gmail.com, and share your stories of high strangeness. And remember, always make time for tea. See you next week.